Bruce, and all EPP, welcome back to you all. As a church, we're given the wonderful privilege of being asked to share faith with others in all kinds of different ways. One of the really important ways of doing that is in developing a culture of invitation and welcome. There's no way in the time that we have to go into too much detail as we think about that today. We're certainly not trying to tell you what to do. Hopefully we can focus our thoughts and ideas today and into the future on what welcome really means. This morning we'll run through some ideas briefly. We'll also give a chance for you to think around your tables about some examples of welcome. It seems sensible first to think, though, about how our vision fits into the theme of welcome. The Diocesan Vision, launched in this conference a year ago, is about focusing on different branches that will help our churches to grow. Invitation and welcome are key aspects of any potential growth. A vision can easily become impersonal, but we're saying that a crucial part of working with any of the 5 branches is about building relationships, and that involves us nurturing a welcoming and hospitable culture in that presence. Our welcome for and of others is absolutely key in helping to grow our churches and to encourage people to explore the Christian faith. Each of the branches are therefore important in welcome. Discipleship. As each of us seek to grow in our relationship with God, we also continue to build relationships with those around us, both inside and outside of our church communities. As disciples, we're also called to make disciples. And to do that means ensuring that people feel invited and welcome to explore questions of faith in a way that they realise they're not being judged, but rather invited to question and to grow. Stewardship. Stewardship is about being generous in our nature as a response to the love of God for each one of us and the gifts that he offers to us. Just as we're invited to think of the gifts we have, we're also encouraged to be invitational, encouraging others in their gifts and helping them to think about those gifts. The invitations we offer people are an initial sign of the welcome we want to give, as well as a token of respect that we offer to others. A good and enthusiastic welcome helps to show that we're all involved together in something that's exciting, something that is potentially life-changing. Social justice. When we do practical things for others, or when we're campaigning for the needs of those who are struggling in any way, we're doing it not out of compulsion, but out of a genuine desire to offer God's love to others, to welcome them as people who are loved by God just as we are. It's something that we can easily do out of a sense of duty, which is, of course, commendable in some ways. But when we do it to share God's love, we do it with a heart that reveals genuine care for all. I read recently of a man who was asked if he was a Christian, and his response was, "Ask my neighbour." What are the neighbours and communities around our churches saying about our invitation and our welcome? Equality and diversity. When we thought about this in our Diocesan Vision, one of the key questions that we've been encouraged to think about is who is missing from our churches. What can we do in our invitation and welcome to build relationships with groups with whom we're currently not engaging enough with? Lots of places use the phrase, all are welcome. How true is that really? Environment. Our words about welcome become hollow when they're not matched by actions. Care for the environment is a massive issue today, and it's one that the church must be part of as we recognise that we're called to be stewards of God's creation, helping to maintain a world where fullness of life is something that is possible for all, and for generations in the future as well. Welcome is about preserving and building for the future, as well as offering something for the present. So that's briefly how the theme of welcome runs through our Diocesan Vision, a vision that encourages us individually as churches and as ministry areas to grow in our relationships with God and with each other, with our care for the world around us, and to respond to the gifts we're given by serving others generously and offering an invitation to others to recognise and know God's love. Growth and welcome are foundational to our diocesan vision. We want to see new people in our churches. Last year at this conference, the Bishop introduced the vision in her address by outlining some of the challenges we face, challenges which still exist in some ways and some places. But she reminded us also that there is hope and joy, there's energy and even excitement, because we continue to believe that God holds out before us a hopeful future. As our headline vision statement proclaims, we have faith in our future. That faith has to give us the confidence to be bold, to know that however hard things may seem at times, we have a wonderful message to share about a Saviour who does change lives. To quote the Bishop from her address last year, "We're at the beginning of a long journey ahead, and the work will need to continue if we're going to translate our hopes and dreams, our plans and strategies into a changed reality on the ground. We need the will and the determination to grow and to believe that growth is possible. We need humility and grace to acknowledge that we have to do different things and in some cases do things differently, so that those who haven't yet embraced the Christian faith can hear the story of God's love for them in ways that compel them to respond. We need the faith to believe in ourselves, not because of what we ourselves can do, but because of what God can do in and through us. Because we know in our hearts that God not only believes in us, but chooses to work through us and invites us to join him in his work and in his mission to the world he created and redeemed." Those words of the Bishop last year remind us why in our invitation and in our welcome we must be bold, we must be confident. When people feel welcome, they feel valued. A culture of invitation and welcome, matched with an authenticity that displays our belief that we have something to offer that is attractive and relevant, reflects a culture of confidence that our churches can grow, both in number and in our relationships with God and with other people, and that they can and will offer a presence that enhances our communities and the lives of people everywhere. There are so many aspects of invitation and welcome that we can only scratch the surface today. But we do want to provoke those thoughts and ideas that will have an impact as you leave here and return to your homes and churches, your places of work, your social connections. As we think about welcome in the conference, please also remember that we're keen to go into more detail about any of the things we talk about. So please get in touch with us if you want to look at these things more deeply, as we hope you will.
So let us think about some of the practicalities of welcome. Picture in your mind that you're standing on the path outside of your church. What do you notice? Can you tell that it's a place of worship? And how can you tell? Does it look like the church is open? How are the grounds cared for? Does the place look like it contains a vibrant, attractive community? Does the outside of your church tell me about what goes on inside? When do you gather for worship? How do I get in contact with someone? What sort of activities, in addition to worship, do you do? And are these activities something that I can come along to or would want to join in with? And to do that, one really basic tip that we can all take on is to stand at a distance, imagining that we know nothing about what is going on inside that building, what happens inside that building, and read the signs that we see visibly in front of us. Does the church look cared for? Is there information for people to see that is attractive? In a society where many people hold prejudgments about the church, first impressions are important. The first impression of our worshipping community many people receive is the external image of your church. Therefore, we can use our buildings our signs, our churchyards, where we have them, to create an attractive and inviting presence into the church community that we want to be.
So our buildings are an important part of our welcome, but it's not the soleness, because the church is much more than our buildings. And however good our buildings might look, how we act and how we have things organised is often far more important for a real welcoming presence. And perhaps the first rule of all in being a welcoming presence is to be authentic. People recognise if an invitation or a welcome they are receiving is false. Last Sunday I was providing cover at a church, and we walked into the building. My partner followed me, and the church people inside didn't know who she was. It was a brilliant moment, always great. It's like mystery worshipper moment. And I walk in, I get the normal archdeacon welcome that you receive when you visit somewhere. And Karen walked in, and the person on the door said, "Hello," passed the books, turned their back, said, "Hi Joan, how's the children?" That was the depth of my partner's welcome into that space. It's a familiar story for too many places. A good welcome doesn't happen by accident. When your church has been your spiritual home for so many years, it's easy to forget what it's like to walk through those doors for the first time. So we have to be intentional in thinking about how we welcome new people into our worshipping environment. Imagine walking into your church on a Sunday morning. Is there someone there to greet you? Is it the right person to greet you? What is given to you for the service? How do you know what to do with all the things that have been passed into your hand? Do you know where to sit to be able to participate? When people come into our churches, we need to get that welcome right. Having someone to offer a welcome in a relaxed manner shouldn't be an optional extra for us, but something that we try to have at all our events. This person may be the first face that someone who is new to our church will see. They come for all kinds of reasons, and potentially even with all kinds of emotions. So let's think about that welcome and think about who is doing it.
Taking a bit further what Stella was saying then, we also need to remember that our church services can often really seem confusing to people. Those who don't attend regularly or who are completely new to church often don't know what books to use, what pages to turn to, which piece of paper they're supposed to be looking at any particular time. We need to make those things clear. If we're fortunate, people will ask for help, but if not, they'll quietly walk away with little or no intention of returning. Think about what we give people when they come into church and how easy it is for them to know what to do with it. In our worship, we need to be constantly aware of what we're doing and how it is impacting people. This isn't just something routine that happens on a Sunday morning or at another regular time in the week, but a time when we're called to really engage more closely with God, to be drawn into a deeper reflection and experience of God's love, taking time to immerse ourselves in that love. Worship is very often described as a shop-front view of the life of our churches, and that is true, but it is much more as well. As we gather for worship, we're praising God, but allowing ourselves to be changed as well. We need worship to impact everyone, those delivering it and those who are part of it within the congregation. Is our worship encouraging people to come, not out of duty or habit, but out of a real longing? In ministry areas, we have real potential for offering different styles of worship at different times across our churches. We have the opportunity to encourage more people to use their gifts and their talents. So we will now talk a little bit more about some of that.
One of our biggest opportunities we have to welcome and introduce new people to faith is through life events. Baptisms, weddings, funerals, some of the most meaningful moments in a person's life and we get the privilege of leading them and their loved ones through it. They are giving us a significant offer of trust and an equally significant opportunity for us to demonstrate the love and welcome of Christ. We cannot afford to miss out on a chance to connect and form meaningful relationships with these families and friends. If we make a good impression and they feel welcome and loved, they may trust us again the next time they need us. Furthermore, every year we have festivals: Christmas, Easter, Harvest, to name a few. Hundreds of people who otherwise don't regularly think about church come across our thresholds to celebrate in their churches. This is an opportunity to serve all of our community, a chance for intergenerational bonding with the passing on of our traditions and faith. We need to be ready. We need to take time to plan these services, to be intentional, to offer our best, and to make sure that anyone who attends leaves with a feeling of connection and of hope. This hope might call them back, perhaps every year, perhaps more often. A common factor of both life events and festivals is the presence of families with children. Are we ready to serve them? We may not have loads of children in our churches at the moment. Some do, some don't. But we know we have the potential to. And we certainly do have contact with them already. It might be through life events and festivals, or it might be through school visits, concerts in the church, or perhaps scouts or guides in the church hall. Our circles of contact reach much wider than we think. So how welcome are they amongst our congregations? If we're honest, is there a part of the church where children can sit comfortably and entertain themselves, to be part of the worship? Can their parents relax? Is there a feeling that if they make a noise, it really doesn't matter? Or not? More importantly, do we have some pipeline activities in place to sustain their fellowship? Many of our ministry areas have put in considerable effort to forming toddler groups which lead into art classes, Sunday schools, messy church, choirs. This is one of the key benefits of being part of a ministry area. Together, we are able to come together and offer community programs which would not be sustainable for a single church alone. We can pool skills, resources, and people to offer high-quality activities that serve our entire communities and build lasting relationships. Speaking of skills and resources, being allowed to volunteer our gifts and talents is another indication of welcome. How well do we use the gifts we have? Is there encouragement, invitation, and space for new people to step forward and help? Lay people are fundamental to making our churches work and flourish. This is indisputable. So we need to be able to establish a culture of gratitude and welcome to new volunteers. They need to feel trusted and accepted when they make an offer of their time or their talents. In your church, is it clear that exploring their gifts is a wonderful part of fellowship? Is space made to develop these gifts, or are jobs restricted and guarded? Is there a path for people to step forward? And perhaps more importantly, is there a culture of invitation to encourage people to take part? Remember, using people's skills and sharing in stewardship is a way of building our communities and welcoming people in.
So I now just want to touch briefly on the use of Welsh in our churches, and I know that this is something that many of our ministry areas are working to enhance. We're not an area of Wales where Welsh is routinely used on a wide basis, but it is important. It's important to our culture and our identity, and our younger people use far more Welsh words and phrases. Welsh is taught in all schools until the age of 16, And from reception, children in our schools have been used to hearing and reading incidental Welsh, such as Bore da, Diolch and Ardderchog o Bendigedig. The number of Welsh medium schools has also increased dramatically in the last 40 years, with many parents today choosing for their children to do their whole education through the medium of Welsh. In using Welsh words in our services and around our churches, in signs and posters and service sheets, we're helping to show that we're part of the modern culture of Wales, and that's a sign of welcome.
We're on the home stretch. Let's talk about relationships. Relationships help us to recognise the needs of other people, and often the needs that aren't as obvious on the outside. Things like making our buildings more accessible for people. We're really good at, well, not really good, sometimes we don't make sure it's turned on, but around thinking about having a hearing loop. But people may have hidden disabilities that aren't easily recognisable. A building of trust and relationship is essential to ensure that we learn of those needs. There's one simple rule. If you notice someone may have additional needs to be fully included into our church community, don't make assumptions. Ask them what their needs might be. Look out for more details that's going to come about some training that we're offering in January on this. And we want to encourage every ministry area to send at least 2 people on that training. It's going to be led by roof breakers for us. And finally, hospitality. So hospitality is brilliant. I was the vicar of a church that did hospitality terribly. They used cheap instant coffee in a little tiny cup where you got 2 sips and it was empty on a little saucer. There were 2 members of the church that were really proud of their badge of being thrown off the coffee rota list because they didn't take it seriously enough. They didn't line the cups up in a pretty order beforehand. And then when the children were given the 1 biscuit that they were allowed to have, this is no joke, Gordon would go around hoovering underneath them as they ate their biscuit. It's so funny. You'd think it was a comedy, but it was actually reality that I walked in on. Thankfully, that church has been on a significant journey of understanding the importance of hospitality, and they now have a barista-style coffee van that they use around the parish. That's taken 2 vicars after me to get to that point. In modern day society with large brand coffee houses and independent cafes, thinking about what is contextually appropriate in offering hospitality is important. People relax over a drink and a cake or a biscuit in a way that enables relationships to be formed and stories to be shared. Make that not just an added extra, but an important part of our fellowship. Make sure people know that they're invited to stay for coffee, that they know there's something there for everyone, that it's well presented, and the tea and coffee is good, as are the cakes and the biscuits. So to sum up, our faith is so much more about relationships, and relationships lie at the heart of so many themes of invitation and welcome. The first impressions and the ongoing invitation of welcome can be expressed in a variety of ways. Welcome goes beyond your words. How you express welcome in your actions and how you set yourselves up as a community explicitly puts into action what you're going to say to someone. Welcome doesn't happen by accident, but requires you to think intentionally about the different phases in which people encounter your community. Welcome requires planning and reviewing as part of the rhythm of your church life. Think of the welcome that enabled you to become part of the church family. Think of the welcome that enables you to continue to be part of the church family. And think of the welcome that will help others feel that they belong to your church. To support you in thinking about this subject of welcome in your context, we've produced some helpful leaflets that will get the conversation started. So thank you for engaging with our exercises today, and we hope that you have started to stimulate within you some thinking.